Come sit with me. We need to talk about this. She called him strong. He heard, don't need anything. Then the marriage collapsed. If you are the person everyone in your life calls their rock, stay with me. The one who handles it, the one who holds it together, the one who never breaks. I need you to hear this. This episode is not about getting more emotional. It is not going to tell you to cry more, share more, be more vulnerable. Those are not the words I'm using today. What I want to talk about is what happens when strength stops being a choice, when it becomes something built around you so long ago that you cannot find the way out. What it does to your body over time. What it does to the person lying next to you who has been reaching for you and can't find you. Not because they aren't trying, because the door you built is very, very good. I worked with a couple I'm going to call Marcus and Dara. They came to me after something happened that didn't make sense to either of them. Not to Marcus, not to Dara, not to me, not at first. By the time I understood what it was really about, I understood something about a specific kind of pain. Most people carry it their whole lives without ever having a name for it. I want to give you that name today. Marcus was 42, senior project manager at an engineering firm. He had been there 14 years. 14 years of delivering projects, managing teams, being the calm one when everything around him was going sideways. He was good at his job. Everybody knew he was good at his job. He had been passed over for a promotion once. The reasons he was given were the kind of reasons that Black professionals in spaces like his know how to read without anyone saying the actual word out loud. He filed a formal complaint. He navigated it. He came out the other side. He did not tell his wife for 3 months. Dara was 41. She was a school counselor. 15 years of sitting with kids who were falling through the cracks. The ones who came in every morning already worn out. The ones who ate lunch alone and acted like it was fine. She had a gift for seeing what people weren't saying. She thought she knew her husband. They had been married 12 years, 2 kids, a boy of 8 and a girl of 5. A house, a good life. From any outside view, it was working. And then Marcus had a breakdown in a stairwell at work, between the 2nd and 3rd floors. He sat down on the steps and cried for 45 minutes. He could not tell you what started it. He could not have explained it if you had sat him down right there and asked. He took 2 weeks of medical leave and told Dara it was burnout. That was the word they agreed on, burnout, because that was the word that fit in the space they had available. They came to see me about 3 weeks after that. When they sat down in my office, the first thing I noticed was how they were positioned on the couch. Not hostile, not cold, just carefully apart. About 8 inches between them, neither leaning away, both sitting up straight, correctly spaced, the way 2 people sit when they are being professional about something hard. Marcus was very still, not relaxed still, practiced still. When I asked how he was doing, he said, fine, immediately. Not rude, automatic. The way you answer a question your mouth has been answering since before you could drive. Dara did most of the talking in that first session. She talked about the pressure at work, about Marcus's mother passing 4 years ago, about the discrimination complaint she had found out about from a colleague, not from Marcus. She was worried. She was thoughtful. She clearly loved this man. And then she looked at him and said, he's my rock. He has always been my rock. I just don't know what happened. He handles everything. I wrote that down. He handles everything. Marcus didn't flinch when she said it. He nodded, like she had stated a fact. His height, his blood type. He handles everything. That is who he is. I want to stop the story right here because this is the moment most people would walk right past. This is where everything that happened later was already sitting, right there on the couch, waiting to be seen. When we call someone our rock, we mean it as the highest compliment we have. You are solid. You are dependable. You will not break. I can lean on you. In the families I know, in the families I come from, calling someone your rock is one of the most powerful things you can say. It means they showed up when everything else fell apart. But here is what that sounds like from the other side, from inside the rock. It sounds like you cannot need anything. You cannot be uncertain. You cannot be tired, not the real kind, not the kind that shows. You cannot ask for help. Because if the rock softens, if it cracks, what happens to everyone who has been leaning on it? That is not a compliment anymore. That is a job description. And it is a job with no sick days, no time off, no moment where you walk into a room and someone asks how you're doing and actually waits for the full answer. I see this in my practice constantly. It shows up in marriages, in families, in friendships, in whole communities. Somebody gets named the strong one, sometimes officially, sometimes just by reputation. And after a while, the strong one starts to disappear. They are still there. They are still handling it. But who they actually are, what they're carrying, what it costs them, nobody knows. Because strong people don't need checking on. Dara loved her husband deeply. She had been calling him her rock for 12 years. Both of those things were completely true at the same time. And together, without either of them deciding anything, they had built a very specific kind of problem. Back to Marcus. In our second session, I asked him something simple. I said, "When was the last time you cried before the stairwell?" He went quiet. Not the quiet of someone who doesn't want to answer, the quiet of someone genuinely searching, going further back than they expected to have to go. He said, "I was 11. Then he told me the story. Something had happened at school. The specific thing doesn't matter, the kind of hurt that is enormous at 11 and dissolves into nothing by 30. He came home crying. His father sat across from him at the kitchen table. His father was not a hard man. He said what he said because he loved his son. He said, 'Son, men carry things. We don't put them down.'" Marcus took that in completely. The way 11-year-olds absorb things, without questioning it, because his father was the person he was trying to become. What his father didn't tell him was the rest of the sentence, the part that lived underneath those words, unspoken, passed from Marcus's grandfather to his father, and now to him without ever being said out loud. The full sentence went like this: "Men carry things. We don't put them down, because if you put it down in the wrong place, in front of the wrong person, they will use it against you." Marcus's grandfather had told his father something similar. Different decade, different city, same lesson, same reason. Because the reason was real. I want to say that clearly before I move forward. If you are a Black man moving through spaces that were not built for you, your composure is evidence that you belong there. Your calm is the thing standing between you and what certain people were already prepared to believe. Showing the strain can cost you your job. I have sat with too many men in my practice who learned firsthand what happens when the armor comes off in the wrong room. The performance review that changed tone. The promotion that quietly disappeared. The meeting where they showed normal frustration, the kind anyone in that room would have shown. And somehow they became difficult. So the instruction Marcus's father gave him was not wrong. It was survival. It was passed down by men who were trying to protect the people who came after them with the best tools they had. The tool worked. For a long time, it worked. But here is the thing about survival tools. They do not know when the danger is over. Marcus had been carrying since he was 11. He buried his mother without missing a day of work. He navigated the discrimination complaint alone. He spent 14 years being one of the only black senior managers at his firm. Watched. Careful. Having to be twice as certain before he opened his mouth in any meeting. He handled all of it, every day. And one afternoon, between the second floor and the third, something stopped. That stairwell was not a failure. I want to call it what it was. That was the first honest moment Marcus's body had had in 31 years. His body found a place where nobody important was watching, and it said, "I cannot do this anymore." Not won't, cannot. Let me stop the story here, because this is the clinical piece I most want you to hold. There's a concept in public health research, not just psychology, in public health, because this is physical as much as psychological, called John Henryism. You may know the folk story. John Henry raced a steam drilling machine. He drove his drill further and faster than the machine. He won. Then he dropped dead with his hammer in his hand. In public health, John Henryism is a real named pattern. It describes what happens when a person responds to chronic, relentless stress by pushing harder, enduring more, absorbing everything. Not because they want to, because they believe their value depends on their capacity to endure. This shows up more often in Black Americans than other groups, though it is not only them. The belief that the moment you stop carrying, something irreversible will happen. A researcher named Sherman James named this and studied it. What he found was that the men who had most fully absorbed this belief showed significantly higher rates of physical breakdown, high blood pressure, cardiovascular stress, the body paying a bill that had never been settled. The machine doesn't get tired. John Henry did. Marcus had been John Henry since he was 11 years old. And here's the thing I need you to hear. Say it and keep it. The instruction was not wrong. His father was not wrong. His grandfather was not wrong. It came from real love in a real world with real consequences. The problem was not where it came from. The problem was that it had no off switch. My grandmother would have said it like this: "That boy's been carrying the house since before he could drive." A tool with no off switch will eventually run through everything in front of it, including the people you love most. Now I want to talk about Dara, because this story is not only about Marcus. It never is. That is not how marriages work. Dara was not the villain here. She was a counselor. She understood people. She had fallen in love with a rock, and she had needed a rock. When her father got sick early in their marriage, Marcus held her through it. When their first child came, and she went back to work too soon and came apart a little, Marcus held her through that too. He was steady. He was there. He solved problems. So without deciding to, she learned what she could put down near Marcus. She learned he could hold it. And she let him, because he offered, and she needed, and that is how it goes. Not through cruelty, through love and need finding their natural positions. The problem is that one person carrying and one person being carried works for a while. It works until the person carrying runs out of room. Here is what Dara told me in our third session. She said, I asked him how he was doing 1,000 times. He always said fine. After a while, I stopped asking because I thought if something was really wrong, he would tell me. I thought fine meant fine. And Marcus, sitting 8 inches away on my couch, said quietly, I didn't know how to say anything else. I want you to sit with that. Not, I didn't want to. Not, I chose not to. He didn't know how. Not because he wasn't intelligent. Marcus was one of the sharpest people I have ever sat across from. But the vocabulary for what was happening inside him, that language had never been built. Today I felt overlooked. Today I was afraid. Today I'm tired in a way that has nothing to do with sleep. There was never occasion to develop those words. The feelings he had were the kind that got managed, set aside, handled, not named. Fine was not a lie. Fine was the only available word. Fine meant, I am still standing. The house is still up. And Dara had been reaching, for 12 years, toward a person who spoke one emotional language. That language had exactly 3 words: fine, tired, handling it. Let me name something directly here, because this is what I most need the person watching alone at midnight to hear. What I just described, a person who cannot access their own emotional experience, that is not a character flaw. Not because they don't feel, because the language was never built. It is not him being cold or unavailable or not caring. It is what happens when the people who loved you taught you from very early on that your feelings were a liability. Not to hurt you, because in the world they were preparing you for, it was the truth. Keep it inside. Handle it. Don't let them see. That lesson got into Marcus's body at 11 years old. It ran every room he walked into for the next 31 years. And here is what that costs a marriage, this specific thing. The person on the other side, Dara, had been reaching toward the actual Marcus for 12 years. Not the project manager, not the rock, the man. The one who came home every day carrying things he had never named. The one who handled the discrimination complaint alone and reported it to her 3 months later like it was a weather event. The one who held her through every hard thing and never once let her hold him back. She was not reaching for more help around the house. She was reaching for contact, for the real person to be in the room. I have sat with so many couples where the man genuinely cannot understand why his wife says she feels alone. He is there every night. He handles everything. What more could she possibly want? And I watch the woman across from him try to explain a hunger that has no easy name. Not for romance, not for gestures, for presence, for the man behind the handling. What Dara needed was not a better husband. She had a good husband. She needed Marcus, the actual one, the one who had been sitting on a staircase floor for 31 years without telling a soul. I did not start our work by asking Marcus to open up. That approach doesn't work, especially for someone who learned to close as a survival skill, someone whose body learned that closing kept them safe. You don't dismantle 30 years of practice in a therapy office by creating a safe space and waiting. You start smaller. You start with one brick, not the whole wall. I gave Marcus a single assignment. Once a day, at dinner, finish this sentence out loud. Today was heavy because blank. That was it. One sentence. He didn't have to explain it. He didn't have to go deeper. He didn't have to cry or process or resolve anything. Just finish the sentence, out loud, where Dara could hear it. And I gave Dara an assignment too. When Marcus finished the sentence, she was to say nothing for 5 full seconds. No fixing, no reassuring, no, I'm sorry, babe. No problem solving the Tuesday. Just 5 seconds of quiet, of presence, of being a person who could hold what she just heard without needing to do something about it immediately. I want to explain why the second part matters as much as the first. Dara's instinct when Marcus shared something hard was to solve it, to make it better. That is love. That is care. But Marcus had learned something. When someone rushed to fix the feeling, he heard the same message. You were right to keep this to yourself. The feeling made people uncomfortable. Put it back. The 5 seconds of silence said something completely different. It said, you can put this down here. I am not going to panic. Your weight does not break me. I am still in the room. That is what Marcus had never had. Not from his father, not from the world he moved through. Not one room where he could put something down and have someone simply stay in it with him. He brought back his first dinner sentence a week later. I remember it exactly. He said, today was heavy because someone questioned my numbers in a meeting. I spent 2 hours after proving I was right, when I could have just asked for help. Dara counted her 5 seconds. Then she said, yeah, that was it. They ate dinner. Their son asked for more rice. The evening moved on. But something had changed. Something small and real, and I believe permanent. I want you to understand what happened in that exchange. That was not a breakthrough moment. That was not a movie scene. He put down a Tuesday, one regular day, one thing that had been sitting in his chest since morning, and Dara received it without flinching, without fixing, without making it bigger than it was. She said, yeah. 2 letters that meant, I hear you. Your weight is not too much for me. I am still here. For a man who had been carrying since he was 11, who believed that putting anything down was dangerous, that word, said in that silence, was medicine he had never been given before. Not a cure, a door. One sentence at a time. Let me say something now for the person watching who recognizes themselves in Dara, the one who loves someone like Marcus and is sitting there thinking, I have called him my rock. I have done that. I have let him carry everything, and I didn't know. You are not the villain either. You needed what you needed. You reached toward the steadiest person in the room, and they offered their steadiness, and you took it. That is what people do. The question is not what you did wrong. It is what you do next. And the next thing, if you are in Dara's position, is to practice receiving without solving. When the person you love finishes the sentence, stay in it with them. Whether they use those exact words or just let something slip in the car on the way home. Don't fix it. Don't reassure it away. Just be there. Let them feel you in the room with it. That is not therapy. That is not a technique. That is what it means to be a safe person for the strong one in your life. Marcus and Dara are still together, working. Not easily, not without hard days, but both of them doing the work. Marcus still adjusts his watch before he answers a question that costs him something. I have come to recognize that move. The hand goes to the watch, and I know we are getting close to something real. I wait. In a recent session, I said something that landed hard on him. He sat quiet for a long time after. Then he said, that's the hardest thing you've told me. I said, I know. He adjusted his watch, and then, just a little, He smiled. He said, "I'll try it at dinner tonight." That is what 30 years of not putting anything down looks like when it starts to change. Not a flood, not a transformation, a small smile and a plan for dinner. That is enough. That is more than enough. So here is where I want to leave you tonight. If you are the strong one, the person everyone leans on, the one they call when something breaks, I want you to ask yourself one honest question, not as a challenge, just as something you may not have stopped to ask in a long time. Who has permission to see you tired? Not the performed tired, not "it's been a long week." The real tired, the carrying everything, never put it down tired. The tired that has been living in your chest so long you sometimes forget it's there. And then it shows up sideways, in irritability, in distance, in a stairwell between the second floor and the third. Who is allowed to see that? If you go through everyone in your life and the answer is no one, I need you to hear this. Not your spouse, not your closest friend, not your sibling, not one person. That is not strength. That is solitary confinement. And you did not sentence yourself. You learned to carry everything alone because someone who loved you taught you to. And they learned it from someone who loved them. The instruction was real. The world it was designed for was real. It kept people standing in rooms that were not built for them. But you are not 11 anymore. And the person next to you in bed is not the office. They are not the meeting room. They are not the colleague who questioned your numbers or the committee that had already made its decision. They are the person who chose you. And if you have only ever let them see the managed version, the fine version, the handling it version, then they have never gotten to choose all of you. The rest of you deserves to be known, not fixed, not solved, not managed. Known. One sentence at a time. Tonight, or tomorrow, whenever you next sit down with the person who calls you their rock, finish this sentence out loud. Today was heavy because blank. One sentence. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to go anywhere with it. Just put down one thing, one day's worth. Let one person be in the room with it. That is where the door is. That is exactly where it is. Take care of you, all of you. I'll be right here.